Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Am I audible? Okay, good. Now, I think we have already notified this. So today's class is for those who are 18 plus. Anyone who is not 18 plus, then you can rewatch this later to the day whenever you turn 18. See, if you're not 18, then you can't even write your PSC. But anyway, don't worry. All of what we may teach today, it's all legal. It's just that we have to put out some disclaimers. A few announcements. You all will have a mini vacation for a couple of days. That's the definition of vacation now for you. We will resume our classes from 12th September onwards. Okay. So you will have an off on 10th and 11th. From 12th September onwards, we will be changing our class time also. And to all those who have been part of the Misfits GS module, they know the reason. Sticking to the same subject, sticking with the same subject at the same time every day, it will lead to boredom. And you will start sensing diminished focus at your end. After a few months and every few months, we need to surprise your brain cells for better retention. Okay. So by changing the time, we will ensure that your mind stays engaged and most importantly, adaptable to something new that we may start from 12th September onwards. We want to prevent your mental fatigue. Okay. And I hope from 12th September onwards, you all will have a fresh perspective on whatever we may study. From 12th September onwards, we will kickstart the new phase of PSIR. Classes will take place in the afternoon, don't worry. But the precise time will let you know. Now, today is, of course, the special day because today is the last episode of Western philosophy. I'm so glad so many of you have stuck around for this long. I absolutely love calling our classes as episodes. No, they're exactly like episodes. So the season one ends today. In the season one, the story revolved around Western political thinkers. And please understand, you do not need any other extra source, any other extra book to study this phase, this part. Whatever we have studied, rely entirely on Misfits. Revise the lectures. There are some fundamental concepts that are tested time and again. Go through those concepts. And with every concept, we have tied it to the real world examples. So today we end the beautiful journey that we began a month ago. And we will wrap up the season one with a very interesting philosopher, Hannah Arendt. Who was she? But most importantly, can you make any observation? What changed? Instead of he, we are using she. Why? If you think about it, all the philosophers that we have studied, read, discussed, deciphered so far, who were they? Which chromosome did they belong to? Anyone? Tell me the chromosomes at least. Divyansh?
Sir, XY chromosome. XY.
Yeah, XY chromosome. Now things are changing. Yeah, they all belong to XY chromosome. Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli. Who were they? Men? Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. Again, who were they? Men? J.S. Mill, Marx, Gramsci. Again, all men. Are women incapable of original thoughts? What if I ask you this exact question in your UPSC interview? I ask you, tell me the names of the philosophers, all the philosophers in Western political theories. Why is it that that list is dominated by men? How would you respond? Do you think women are incapable of original thoughts? That's the reason. How will you respond to this question? Soumya?
So I would like to say that women are not incapable of original thought. It was that the list is dominated by men because the list was, guarded by men, and women were not allowed to enter that list because of them being pushed away to more domestic sectors and not the public sector. And we can see how J.S. Mill's wife also had to be co-author of a book to put in her thoughts, which further inspired J.S. Mill. So if we're talking about only one female philosopher in the list, it's because of the changing times, and maybe this is the time where women actually had to, step up, and they gained a platform and agency to have a voice.
Fantastic. Good response. Of course, you will vehemently disagree with this initial statement. How can you say women are incapable of thinking? Of course, in the fit of rage, you may say this to your girlfriend or sister, but that is in a fit of rage, anger. Anger, rage, that's the time when you're not thinking yourself. You will say that the reason why this domain, this discipline, it is male dominated, what's that reason? You will not say that it's because women are less capable. The reason is historic inequality. No? If you think about it, until very recently, formal education, it was made available to women. In ancient Greece, women were systematically excluded from the intellectual circles. Social norms. Social norms, they confined women to roles within the home, within the family. And as a result, what happened? Limited public participation. If we go back to our first class, the beginnings of Western philosophy, the beginnings of political science, what did I say? All philosophers that we have read, none of them, and none will be, those who were cloistered in their rooms or libraries. They were actively engaged in the politics of the day. They were not simply the bystanders. Machiavelli was a Florentine diplomat. Rousseau, Hobbes, they were all engaged in the politics of those days. Modern day philosophers, Bill Gates, and many others, also engaged in the politics of today. But what about women? Were they engaged in politics of those days? They were systematically excluded from public life, political life. In fact, in ancient Greece, women were denied citizenships. How can they even participate in public life? The legal system, the political system was structured in a way that maintained the dominance of XY chromosome. Right? Because women were excluded from voting rights, property rights, even basic legal autonomy. Now, of course, some of you will say, and rightfully so, you will say that, what about Cleopatra in ancient Greece? What about Catherine the Great in Russia? They were also women. But those were the exceptions. Those women came to power in exceptional circumstances. We can view their exceptional circumstances through the lens of royalty, noble status. But yes, slowly and steadily things will change. Slowly and steadily, the political education opportunities will expand for women. And more specifically, in the 20th century, women will also enter this space. And from there on, they will immensely contribute to this beautiful discipline. And one such philosopher whose works it's extremely important is Hannah Arendt. Who was she? Who was Hannah Arendt? Myra?
Hannah Arendt was a German-born Jew in the 20th century, and she was against the totalitarian regimes, specifically Nazism and Stalinism, and she had also suffered the atrocities at the hands of like facing during Nazism, like of Nazism. So yeah, but later on in the years, she shifted to America, and that is how she developed as a philosopher.
Okay. In fact, there's a goddamn movie dedicated to her. Anyone who's watched that movie? There's a movie titled Hannah Arendt. Let me show you a trailer of it. Okay. Watch the trailer and basis the conjectures you can decipher how will that movie progress. Okay, we mastered that art of conjectures. So many episodes. Let's watch it and let me know your thoughts. Especially those who are watching this for the very first time, learning about Hannah Arendt for the very first time. Make some conjectures. Okay. That movie's trailer, it ended with a very powerful line. A phenomenon that Hannah Arendt termed as banality of evil. Right? Basis the trailer, we can make few very easy conjectures. What are those conjectures? Karuna?
So first of all, she seems to be courageous. She might have faced backlashes. Even her own, she might be talking. I still remember in Aristotle class, she was talking about the complexities of the societies. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. So number one, she was speaking German. No. From that trailer of the movie, I think it's evident she's speaking German. Only Germans can sound so rude in polite moments. So one conjecture that we shall make is that she was German born. And indeed she was. Born in 1906 in Germany. And if you're born in Germany around that time, you're going to have a very interesting life ahead. There's going to be a political upheaval. You will be what, 8 or 9, when there will be the World War I. And then you will see the significant rise of Nazism, fascism in Italy. World is going to see many political upheavals. If you looked at the trailer carefully, what else did you see? Hints around Nazi Germany. Trial of a man called Adolf Eichmann. Who was Adolf Eichmann? The trailer talked about Adolf Eichmann, not Hitler, but Eichmann. Who was he? Aman?
Sir, he was the one responsible for transporting the Jews to the concentration camp.
Yeah. He was a high-ranking Nazi official. Someone who was directly responsible for organizing the operations of Holocaust. Trailer also indicated that she went to Jerusalem. Israel would be born at a specific year. What does that indicate? And yes, she is going to Jerusalem, the land of the Jews. She was, of course, a Jew. And then that trailer ended with a very powerful reference to something called as Banality of Evil. That is one powerful concept that Hannah Arendt introduced after attending the Eichmann's trial in Jerusalem. We will come back to this idea of banality of evil. But with just 2 minutes of trailer, we can make so many conjectures. No? She is a Jew. That's one thing we have established. She was a German-born Jew. Another thing. And she was alive. She survived the Holocaust. So we can safely say that she fled Nazi Germany. First, she reached France, and then later to the US during the rise of Hitler. And this movement of hers, it also shaped her intellectual journey. Why? You know this because every philosopher is a child of his times. In this case, she would be the child of her time. She is moving around. And all those experiences as a refugee, as an outsider, all of those experiences will shape her theories. It will shape her reflections on being a stateless. And she may have views around power. How do these totalitarian regimes behave? Her works will focus on Nazi Germany, Eichmann. Her thoughts will extend beyond these specific historical events. She will give us broader themes around power, authority, conditions that make totalitarianism possible. So who was Hannah Arendt? A German-born American political philosopher who lived through the rise of Nazi Germany. She fled the Nazis and eventually became a leading intellect in the US. I think she became a professor at the New School in New York. Could be wrong, but I think she became a professor. And basis her experiences, she will contribute her thoughts on multiple issues. So today we start a journey to understand this thinker. A thinker who did not just break the gender norms, but someone who will also break the spatial norms, because her works will have global relevance. That's perhaps the reason why we're studying her, analyzing her works here in India for an examination that may train you to become an Indian civil servant. So we'll begin this journey by watching a few videos. I'll show you a few videos. Watch those videos and just imagine if Hannah Arendt was sitting in the Misfits classroom along with you all. What will she think about whatever she will see now? Okay, let's watch a few videos. And then let me know your thoughts. And all these videos are clippings from recent events. that have happened in our country. Look at the faces of people who are committing this atrocity. Look at their faces.
हमारा त्योहार चल रहा, हमारा सन चल रहा श्रावण, तुम तुम्हारी पहले लेके जा रहे, तुम्हारी अभी तो 20 किलोमीटर नहीं, 200 किलोमीटर जा रहा। कसं आहे ते जोरात बोलायचं स्पष्टपणे कसं आहे जोरात बोल इथे येऊन बोल बोल.
He's so devastated that he can't even, voice is not coming out, it seems.
पोलीस स्टेशन चल तेरी माँ पहले बैल बोला तूने आणि वो जो चेकिंग को लेके गए तेरी बहन को देखो भी जो है सच में.
Look at his face, look at his face, look at his face. Look at all these people. This goes on and on. Let's watch another one.
Ladies and gentlemen, even as the nation struggles to get in terms with the Arjik horror, another incident of rape has come to the fore from the holy city of Ujjain, which has quite literally shamed the entire humanity. A woman was allegedly raped on a footpath in broad daylight at a busy junction after being intoxicated. If the crime being committed in public space was not ridiculous enough, the reaction of the people around has added insult to injury. Many people who passed through this crime scene turned into silent spectators. Forget about helping. Some of them recorded this bone-chilling crime. The accused, identified as Lokesh, has now been arrested after he admitted to committing this heinous crime.
Okay. There are more. Let's see this last one. And all of this is just, in 1 week's time frame.
Speed car chase rushing through the toll at Faridabad that ended up with death. 12th grade student Ardendt was in this red duster on the night of the 23rd of August with his friends brothers Harshit and Shanky, their mother and her friend, when they were chased by Anil Kaushik, a cow slaughter vigilante. Also in the car were 4 others. After chasing the red duster for 30 kilometers, they fired 4 rounds, shooting dead Ardendt, who was in the passenger seat. The Faridabad police, which has arrested all 5 accused, say Kaushik and the other 4 suspected Ardendt and his friends to be cow smugglers.
जो अभी तक इनिशियली जो चीज़ सामने आई है जो पूछताछ के अंदर ये जो गलतफहमी के अंदर गोली जो है वो चलने की जो बात है वो सामने आई है. जो आरोपी हैं उनको लगा कि ये किसी तरीके कोई आपराधिक व्यक्ति हैं जो किसी आपराधिक वारदात को अंजाम करने के लिए आए हैं और उन्होंने इसी उसके अंदर उसे प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए किया.
मेरे को अनिल कौशिक को सामने खड़ा कर दिया गया. अनिल कौशिक को खड़ा किया गया. अनिल कौशिक ने कबूल किया है कि गोली मैंने चलाई है.
अनिल कौशिक ने क्या कहा, क्यों, किस वजह से गोली चलाई?
कह रहे हैं गौ समझ के मैं पीछा कर रखा था. अनिल कौशिक से मैंने सवाल किया कि इतनी बड़ी गाड़ी में गऊ कैसे आ जाएगी.
While the police is saying that the investigations are still going on, the parents of the deceased Aryan Mishra are still not satisfied and are saying that
Thoughts, anyone? How would you react? What would be your thoughts? Go on, Channi.
Good evening, sir. Firstly, I believe that these are new age totalitarianism that's happening. I mean, that is how I wouldn't say it's absolute totalitarianism, but that is how the opinion of majority is being imposed on the minority in one way. I'm not able to structure my thought because I'm completely speechless by looking at the events. But if Hannah would have been in this age, she would have felt that world has changed a very little than what it used to be during the Nazism, and towards the emotions of people and towards the hatred of certain section of people. And with respect to what's happening with this cow smuggling and the beef theory of concepts, it is I mean, they all will not be able to answer the moral questions that animal activists or vegans would put on them. It's just that they are driven by the narratives that is being made around the people. So these are my very clumsy thoughts. That's just there in my mind.
Okay. Just think about it. What all did we see? This is just 1 week's update. Next week, you will see similar stories. Thereafter, similar stories. The numbers might increase, not decrease. The numbers might increase. Who knows? The first video, 20-year-old youngsters. So many of them. I think it was mentioned that some of these people, they had a dream to join the police. I think they gave the examination or the interview, I don't know. Brutally assaulting a 70-year-old man. Why? Because it was alleged, not confirmed, alleged, that he was carrying something that they did not eat or they did not like. Was he eating in front of them? No. Was he cooking in public? No. Whether it was a specific animal's meat or not, that's a different story altogether. But if you look at these people who were there, sitting in that train, participating in the activities, recording that activity, one of them was smiling also, perhaps the happiest day of his life. If you were to look at their profiles on social media, none of them would seem like a villain. They would feel like regular civilians that you and I, we stumble upon on a daily basis, in a daily commute. Mercilessly, shamelessly, they were beating an elderly man. Why would they do it? There's an English word, right? Banal. What does that mean? Hannah Arendt, she ended that trailer with that sentence. Banality of evil. Banal, what does that mean? It means ordinary. Do you know what's opposite of banal? Extraordinary, exceptional, remarkable. The word banal, it means ordinary. People you saw in the train beating a man who was 50 years elder to them, they did not have those six-pack abs. They were not those who were trained in martial arts. They were not 6'5". All those folks, they did not seem like trained assassins. They all appeared like someone you may find anywhere. Did they look dangerous in first instance? No. You and I, we come across such people on a daily basis. Banal, ordinary folks. A rape happened in the broad daylight in Madhya Pradesh. What did the bystanders do? They chose to record it. They did not intervene. They thought, let's record it. And then let's make this go viral on Twitter or YouTube. Perhaps sell this to some agencies. What does that show? It's the perfect example of how ordinary individuals behave. These are those people who you and I, we see on daily basis. How can they become so morally indifferent? Shouldn't we ask this question? Let's forget about BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, TMC. Are we becoming thoughtless? Are we becoming detached from logic, rationality? Don't you think this is now happening at a mass scale? How can we become so numb to human suffering? A few days ago, one of my videos, it went viral, where I spoke about a rape that took place in West Bengal. Do you know what did some of the people comment? Being a pro-BJP. Talk about UP. Talk about MP. The minute you talk about UP or MP, then they may ask, talk about Bengal. Some said you're funded by Soros. Let me show you a few screenshots. Look at this and just let me know what's happening. Just read this. This is an actual guy, wrote on Twitter. Someone is feeling jealous. And there are many such screenshots. This is what some people in our society commented, with many likes and retweets. These are those who have the internet. They have the basic knowledge on how to use the internet. They can comprehend basic English language. And that is what they comment. What does it show? If you look at these people in the eye, they may not look like monsters. They may not look like trained assassins. They are regular citizens of India. These are those citizens that you and I, we may trust them. These are those who you and I may meet in trains, in hospitals. How can such people engage in such horrific acts? More interestingly, how can they remain bystanders? Wouldn't you ask this question? They don't look like traditional villains that we may see in Bollywood or Hollywood. Regular individuals. How can they passively record a video of women getting raped in broad daylight and not intervene? Let me show you this very interesting video. What is happening? A 30-year-old man died on the road. What did bystanders do? They stole the GoPro. They stole the phone. There's a Hindustan Times article that mentions that they also took selfies. This is Banality of Evil. This is Hannah Arendt's concept of banality of evil. It suggests what? In simple terms, it suggests that evil is not always committed by monstrous individuals with malicious intent. Evil is committed often by those ordinary people. But very interestingly, those ordinary people, they cannot think. They do not reflect on the moral consequences of their actions. They lack critical thinking. It is this lack of moral disengagement that allows for evil to become banal. Banal, something that is now ordinary and routine. These bystanders who recorded the rape for virality, bystanders who did not help the man who died with excessive bleeding on the road, those who did not stand for that old man getting beaten up mercilessly. What does that show? They were morally detached. Humanity was dying in front of them. They had no compassion. That's banality of evil. Of course, if you were to take actions, if you were to raise your voice tomorrow, who knows, you might be accused by some fringe elements of being sponsored by someone or being a spokesperson of a specific party. That is what matters to them. That's a devastating feature now of our society. This banality lies in how ordinary, unremarkable people, how thoughtless they are. Hundreds of years ago, Hannah Arendt saw something similar. Not hundreds of years, many years ago, 70 decades ago. Hannah Arendt also saw something similar to what we are seeing today in India. She observed how violence, cruelty, how it was normalized in a society. Today, we are analyzing the daily acts around us to describe banality of evil. We're analyzing how ordinary citizens behave. Many decades ago, Hannah Arendt, she analyzed a man called Adolf Eichmann. Who was Adolf Eichmann? One of you mentioned this in the beginning. High-ranking Nazi officer. And he was one of the key architects of Holocaust. What was Holocaust? It was a systemic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany, a regime that was led by Adolf Hitler. Millions of Jews, Romani people, Polish, and those with differing political, religious, and sexual orientations, they were murdered. How were they murdered? Through gas chambers. They were murdered through starvation. Not just that, even brutal medical experiments were conducted on them. It was an industrial-style mass murder. And this man, Adolf Eichmann, he was instrumental in overseeing the logistics of mass deportation of Jews to these extermination camps. This man, Adolf Eichmann, was responsible for overseeing the transportation and coordination of Jews from across Nazi-occupied Europe to the death camps. It was a bureaucratic process. Hannah Arendt, she analyzed Eichmann during his trial in Jerusalem in 1961. And it was her observation of Eichmann that formed the basis for a famous book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil. And in that trial, And basis that trial, Hannah Arendt noted that Eichmann, he didn't appear as a villain or monster the way we are seeing today on those trains. He appeared like an ordinary, unremarkable bureaucrat, someone who was just simply following orders. But yes, someone who was not thinking about the consequences. And the way we are seeing it in India. Adolf Eichmann did not act out of deep hatred. The people who were beating that mercilessly that old man in the train, did they know him beforehand? No. They just met him a few hours ago. So how can there be so much hatred against this specific individual? There were many others who were in different bogies. When they were told about this, they all came in to do what? Watch. Like those men on the train, or those recording the videos of rape, or the one who is stealing GoPro from a dying soul on the road. They did not have hatred for those folks. They barely knew those people. Similarly, Eichmann did not act out of deep hatred or anger. What did he embody? He embodied something called banality of evil, a beautiful term that Hannah Arendt coined to describe how ordinary people, through blind obedience, thoughtlessness, conformity, how can they commit such horrific acts? For Hannah Arendt, this Eichmann's case, it demonstrated that evil can be perpetrated not just by fanatics, but by ordinary individuals who fail to reflect on their moral responsibilities. So please write down a question that you could be asked in the examination. Discuss Hannah Arendt's Banality of Evil. 20 marks, 250 words. I think now you all know the basic format. You all know how to criticize in debating style. You know how to give contemporary examples. You know how to give certain examples, talk about certain concepts. And by the way, today's class will extend because there are 3 more concepts that we have to discuss today. But yeah, believe me, it's going to be a very interesting class. Okay. Let's come back to this question. This potential question that you can be asked in your PSI or optional. How will you go about it? What will you write? Just tell me the structure and then we can discuss